Hey everybody, welcome into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is a Wednesday night. It's a Wednesday at the Woody, I think is how I'll decide to phrase it this week for some snap judgments.
It's another way you could phrase it.
Woody Wednesday, let's do it. That's Bill Berm. I am Austin Ward. What did we learn? Ohio State's one day closer to playing the Spartans on the road. It's really, teams come together.
Yeah.
You gotta get on the bus together and have some good vibes. And
First time in the history of the program that Ohio State's going to play a road game.
It seems odd. Like we're making a huge, like not necessarily we, but the royal we, asking a lot of questions about that because the schedule is pretty quirky.
It's odd. I can't recall 5 straight home games going on the road for the first time in the second week of October is weird, but this is not a team full of freshmen. They have played road games before, but I guess that's what we ask about when we have to fill column inches and podcast time. Luke Whippler, here's what I learned. Luke Whippler has a lovely singing voice.
Really?
Yeah, he walked out of that door over there.
Uh-huh.
He was singing Bad at Love. That's a Halsey song. Am I right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Little falsetto.
Okay.
I didn't know he had it in him.
Oh, I think Halsey's from Jersey.
I believe that is correct.
So they only listen to local music.
Maybe
there.
they're related.
Luke Whippler also said he had some bad memories of going on the road to Michigan State because he scored in that game 2 years ago, but not for the Buckeyes.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that as well. I forgot a lot about the 2020 season and what happened at Michigan State. But to be fair, I was like 30 rows up in the stadium trying to shoot pictures, and I very specifically remember walking around the bowl there and at one point falling because I had all my equipment and I was like landed on my elbow. That was painful. I think I got hit more that game than anyone on the Ohio State offense did, and that was actually a game that Michigan State going in, so didn't know what Ohio State was going to be. The Buckeyes were down 3 starting offensive linemen. I feel like this weekend should be a little bit less chaotic for the Buckeyes. Than
Yeah. Several other people on this beat were like, "What are you talking about? You scored," and he had to recount the memory. Yeah, I snapped it over Jack Miller's head, 30 yards for a safety. Didn't turn out great. So he has just a slight bit of retribution on his mind that he wants to go.
Whippler revenge game.
Yeah, it's a revenge game.
Who knew? All right.
And this offensive line, I think, they take a challenge every single week. And for Luke Whippler, I think that's the edge that he's found. He's tried to, they got several questions about, Michigan State's defense has struggled. Like, how do you prepare for that, knowing that they've had some ups and downs? He's like, well, I'm treating them like the '85 Bears. So I don't think that will be the case, but it's sort of, Luke Whippler is a fascinating person.
I like the way he talks.
Yeah.
The way he, turn of phrase of that guy's pretty good. This offensive line, is this ceiling, the way they've played, I guess I should say, is the way they've played increase what you think their ceiling can be this year for either of you guys?
I don't think it's increased the ceiling. I think what has changed for me is that, or has impressed me, is how quickly they're getting close to that ceiling, as opposed to, like, when you look at just the pure athletic talent of Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones, like, those are rare offensive tackles. And Ohio State has been sort of picked apart in the last 5-6 years because despite having productive offensive lines, they haven't been able to put out first-round talent at tackle, and that's sort of what opens eyes in the recruiting world. They're going to have at least one next April with Paris Johnson. And Bill and I were talking about it as we watched DeJuan Jones walk across the field after practice. He came in, pads off, and just, pants and an undershirt. And, wow, that kid looks a lot different. And we talked about it in preseason, and it sounds like a joke, he lost 10 pounds, but like, he looks different. And when you see the way he's playing right now, I think he could be a first-round pick as well. And so you could potentially be having someone asked Paris, like, if someone was to compare you to Orlando Pace and Corey Stringer, which is obviously the best tackle tandem in Ohio State history for 1 year that they played together, like, these guys are elevating themselves, and I don't want to be like too, recency bias or whatever, but it seems like there's a upside that, and Whippler's played so good in the middle that I just think the whole line was amazing.
Then DeJuan got over here to the bench on my right and took that undershirt off, and like nothing moved or changed. It wasn't a bro situation, and I just walked. I was like, God damn, that is a crazy body. Like, I mean that in like the nicest way I could. Like, the dude
Adam Levine is watching us and just ready to send out a fire DM with
your body, Dewan,
with an Austin Ward video in it. It's going to be great. You're welcome, Maroon 5.
That's the clean version. Jeez.
I don't think anyone has carried 360 pounds the way that Dewan Jones does. He's got like massive hands. I was listening to an NFL draft podcast. They were talking about him. He's got like an 11-foot wingspan apparently, which I didn't know about him. I guess you could assume
there are pterodactyls looking at less than 11.
Yeah, he's just like from the measurables, like he checks every single box. But he put a concerted effort this offseason into dropping that weight so that he could move better, be better against speedy pass rushers. And probably Ryan Day alluded to this on Tuesday when he talked about Paris Johnson. They have bigger challenges to come for sure when it comes to facing premier pass rushers down the line. But to this point, I think you see Paris playing very well and DeWand excelling in the areas that he wanted to excel in based off the offseason work that he put in that was a reflection of what the NFL told him, which is like, if you want to come out, you'll be a 5th-round pick. But if you do these things, maybe you could be a 3rd, 2nd round, or as Berm said, maybe even trend toward a 1st-round
What
pick.
I like is that neither one of them seem content with where they are now. Paris made a quick point as soon as he was asked about that comparison. I've only played 5 games at tackle, so like they're not sitting there going, oh, you're right, I am the greatest thing that's been in this locker room since 1995. Like, that's not the way it is. And DeWan,
just to finish 7 or 8 years before they were born.
Just to finish the point on DeWan, like his physical numbers, that size, and the way he moves, if he's able to acquit himself at all at the last half of the season against some good pass rushers, because he struggled pretty mightily last year against Michigan, and I think that was one of the impetuses for him to be like, oh, you need to come back. Like, I don't see how he's not a 1st-round pick. There's going to be an NFL team who's enamored by that size and athleticism.
I think the question that you asked, Bill, I don't think that the ceiling has changed, because I thought that could be something Ohio State could obtain if they were on the trajectory that we expected. I think that the floor has raised, that the week in, week out production, I think, is better than I thought it would be at this point. And because Donovan Jackson has been so good, because Matthew Jones, you don't see any issues popping up, and because DeWan is better with the handling speed rush and all that. And we'll see those tests as we move forward. You know, Michigan State, I don't know. They've got somebody who racked up some early sacks. I don't know that means that they have a great pass rush that's going to test it. Iowa's played good defense. I think they're probably pretty equipped. We know Penn State's always going to have some dudes up there for a battle in the trenches. So the next couple of weeks may tell us a lot more than the first 5, but maybe not Saturday. That'll be a coin flip if that actually happens. So CJ Stroud didn't meet with the media tonight. He was scheduled to. No reason to look into it. I think probably he just didn't want to get some of the questions about not being perfect again. So his receivers answered that for him, and they're like, we feel like there's a lot more room to grow offensively in terms of the passing game.
I think there probably is. One question was asked to, I think, Emeka Ibuka about getting the passing game back on track, which didn't really register with me. Like, I don't think they're off track. They threw the ball 22 times against Rutgers. I get it. 154 yards is not a lot for this particular offense. I really think they're fine, and they're going to show everybody that they're fine on Saturday, because again, Michigan State's pass defense is terrible. They're just like not equipped to stop Ohio State on the back end, but it can be cleaner. I think there are things maybe CJ in particular can do to be a little more comfortable and patient in an offense that looks the way this one looks right now. But I also think too that how this offense looks right now is not necessarily how it's going to look in 4 or 5 weeks if Jackson Smith and Jigba gets back into the fold. So maybe he's got to bide his time a little bit, CJ does, until he gets back to, laser show every week.
I just think it speaks to how just insane the expectations are around Ohio State. 4 weeks ago, all we were talking about is how, this running game, you don't know if they're going to be any good or not. It may be a struggle. They may struggle to get a yard or two when they need it. Now they're averaging 8 yards a carry, and now the passing game is like not having 500 yards a game passing because the running backs are getting 8 yards a carry. And now it's like, what about the passing game? When is it going to get better? Like, you can't have 1,000 yards a game.
You can't?
No.
Oh.
It's not real life, people. This isn't Madden. And Come on, America. I'm just asking you to be fair, okay? Come on, man.
Ryan Day talked about that on Tuesday. Walking through the Blackwell, and a fan walks up and says, "What do we think? 63-0 today?" And he's like, Probably didn't get a first down first. That's all we're looking to do. But also that, like, in this building, that's the expectation, that's the standard, that they have to win every single game and that they want to play perfect, and that's not always going to happen. And you shouldn't be dissatisfied to win by 39 against Rutgers or whatever happens on Saturday. We expect it'll probably be a win over Michigan State, but maybe it won't be a flawless, clean game, and then that doesn't mean that you spend 2 weeks getting ready for Iowa. Like, is this team broken? Like,
I don't think they're not broken. I was thinking about this earlier today. As I was thinking of things that we could maybe talk about on the Thursday daily, which we didn't get to this, but I'll ask it now.
What do you mean we didn't get to it? Today's Wednesday.
Sorry, I predict that we will not get to it. Is CJ Stroud the most overanalyzed player that you think has been on this team since we've all been covering it?
I'm going to say off the top of my head, no, because I think that is the nature. I understand what you're saying and why you're saying it, because he's probably the first one to go into a season since Braxton with reasonable, realistic expectations that he could win the Heisman Trophy. Braxton never really had to do that after the shoulder injury. But the quarterback position here is so scrutinized year in and year out, and JT had to do it for so long. I would say that the collective amount of scrutiny on him and people who had opinions on both sides, like, was a crazy time.
Yeah, I think JT Barrett was the most polarizing.
For sure.
Like, for a guy that everyone generally liked, like, it wasn't like anyone thought he was just a bad guy. Everyone liked him, but there was just that segment of fans who were like, this guy should not be the quarterback. And despite the fact that he has, like, every single Ohio State record for quarterbacks. But I think what's interesting is that you think about JT, like, he should have been the guy who, going into 2015, we're like, oh, yeah, this is, he finished third in the Heisman in 2014 as a redshirt freshman, but then he has the ankle injury, so you don't have those expectations. And then Cardale, and then, like, it's just always been and then. So CJ, like, this,
but even Justin too, like, was cruising for it, and then 2020 was weird.
So this was the one time, I think, with CJ, what makes it feel different to me is that there were no, like, strange things that happened that caused the narrative to shift to something else. Like, so this is like a clean look and saying everything's perfect. Everything is set up for this to happen. Whereas those other years, again, Fields, and after 2019, everyone sort of assumed he was going to be a Heisman finalist again and should win it in 2020. And then COVID happened, and of course Alabama never had COVID, so
didn't exist.
Devontae Smith got to win the Heisman that year because of it. So,
Bill, I think maybe your point is that the standard for CJ on a week basis nobody else has had to deal with that.
It feels impossible to live up to sometimes. Like, and I guess it's partly his fault because we've seen games where he goes like 17 for 18, and it's like, what are we watching right now? But I just think sometimes, like, we almost examine him sort of like in this silo where, like, the play is a pure result of whatever he does. And, like, even if you think back to the Rutgers game, like, he missed Emeka Ibuka on a third down crosser. He got hit on the play. He couldn't fully, and he missed Marvin Harrison down the sideline. He got hit on the play. Yeah. Like, he can't step into those throws. And, like, it's fine. I'm not trying to take the blame and place it elsewhere. I'm just saying, I think sometimes when we talk about CJ, we don't take the totality of the single play into account, and it's just like, oh, he missed that throw.
And I think quarterback's just unique because we're not just comparing him. We watch Emeka Ibuka and we're not going, yeah, but Chris Olave did this. Like, with the quarterback, we're like, but Dwayne did this and Justin did this. And so, like, why do we expect CJ to be the perfect amalgamation of every quarterback that's ever played here before? Like, he's his own guy, and you just have to stop comparing them. It's not even like they're being compared. It's like they're all being combined into this Voltron of quarterback.
I don't.
Oh, I like that.
The Ohio State Voltron. He is so unique that I don't see any value to compare his numbers, his style, any of that to Justin Fields. When we went to see CJ Stroud in California a few years ago, you're like, well, he does look like Dwayne. He has some similarities. Like, I don't think they play the game the same way. I don't think they approach it the same way. Rest in peace, Dwayne. But he's obviously different than JT. He's obviously different than Braxton, Terrell Pryor, all these other guys. Yeah. And so I don't even view it through that. I am comparing him to CJ Stroud from a year ago, and that's probably not fair. He's different, and the pieces around him are different. I am comparing him to, like, what would this look like if you were playing Alabama or Georgia or whoever in the playoff, And that's also perhaps not fair when you're 5 games into a season. You don't have Jackson Smith and Jigba. All of it is probably unfair, but like that's also what you sign up for.
That's the nature of being the quarterback at Ohio State.
Yeah, I guess so. I just like.
So that's why he didn't come out tonight.
Yeah, but honestly, probably
he's sick of us.
That's largely been the line of questioning for him the last few weeks, and I'm not like accusing him of ducking questions, but I'd imagine it does get frustrating to play the way he's played all year, and the tenor of the conversation around you is like, why aren't you better?
How many times can you answer it? I mean, he's already said it. We talked to him Saturday night after the game. That's plenty. We'll talk to him Saturday at about 8:00 in Eastlands.
Yeah, after he throws 6 touchdowns.
Can't wait to get up there. First road trip coming. Ohio State at Michigan State. Make sure that everything is gassed up and ready to go, boys. It's almost that time. This has been Snappy Jays on a Wednesday at the Woody. That's Bill Burm. I'm Austin. We'll see you tomorrow for the Podcast Daily.